So I've been in China for the first 2 years of COVID. In the very, very beginning of COVID, I actually flew back to America with Annie and Eva, and then I flew back to China because I saw how bad America was handling the beginning phases of COVID, and I was like, this is going to be a total disaster in America. It was going to be a shit show. And you know what? I was proved right. The country I'm in right now has 1 million less lives, 1 million less people breathing air, 1 million less people above ground because of the ineptitude of their response to COVID. And that is egregious. And that can't be forgotten either. I feel like today we have such short-sighted responses to just tragic stories because news is so sensationalized that we're being bombarded with crazy stories. And so China has, I think, successfully handled the situation for zero COVID. If that's what they wanted to do, they handled it very well up until I would say 6 months ago, or maybe even a little bit more, a little bit less than that. But let's just say 6 months ago, they had this policy of zero COVID, which meant that if any cases of COVID popped up within the mainland of China, the whole area would be locked down tight. Mass testing, quarantining, waiting until everybody was clear, codes would go from red or yellow to green, and then life would be normal. And that worked for most of the variants of COVID really well, really well. As a matter of fact, if China handled the virus like America did, China would have like 4 or 5 million less inhabitants. And maybe more if they handled it the same way America did, because the poverty in China is greater and more impoverished, I think, than the poverty in America. There's a big poverty problem in America. Trust me, I'm in Portland right now. There's a really big problem with homelessness and poverty. But the rural countryside of China, which is vast, has a larger amount of people that live very, very simply. And I think that those populations would be hard hit by a looser policy of living with COVID, such as America did. But let's think about this, though, and this is what I've been thinking, is that China had the zero COVID policy. They really knocked it out of the park for the first few years that COVID spread around the world. Well, it spread, the vaccines were created, vaccine programs were implemented, care systems were created, care systems were implemented, equipment and understanding of how to treat these viruses were implemented and created. And so, and we also learned demographics that were affected by the virus. Elderly, infirmed, overweight, all these sorts of different populations of people that had greater risk to the negative, obviously the worst effects of COVID, dying or having the need to be hospitalized in severe cases. And so I thought that zero COVID for China was really the right thing. If you looked at the whole world and you looked at China, I would say if you can do it, the Chinese method of zero COVID is the best.